Hi, it's Lori from Coast to Coast Craft Girls, coming to you from the West Coast. Today I wanted to share a pretty sort of a tunnel effect card that I made. This is some stencil art that I created, and I'll show you how to do that. But really pretty. You could leave the stencil honestly just on its own, but I kind of liked the looks of the framing with the trees and the tunnel effect. And I'm going to put my sentiment on here. I just haven't decided what sentiment I want to use yet, so let me show you how it's made. So I'm using the stencils from Altenew, a waterfall scene. This is a piece of watercolor card, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And you need to place, I'm actually going to place this so the bottom of the stencil is right here on the bottom of the card. I can trim it down if I need to later. And I'm going to do the rocks first. And my first color I'm going to use is, I'm going to use a Harmony's Opaque Pigment ink, Twilight Gray by Spectrum Noir. And it's kind of a brownish gray, which is what I want for the rocks. And there's some really small little pieces in this stencil, so you have to be careful and kind of move the inking in the direction those little pieces are, because they're hanging down and they're not attached at the bottom, so you don't want to pull them up. Now I'm going to put my foliage on there, and this is the top part, and there's just a little bit of a line right here to help you line it up. Sorry, I'm going to get my head right in the way. Looks like that. The first layer is going to be Misty Sage. Stencil 1. Set this to one side. And do stencil 2. I'll start with the foliage this time, since it's easy to line up now. We're going to go with the Mossy Meadow. Then we're going to line up the bottom part. And I'm going to use my Smoked Pearl Opaque Pigment. And I'm going to use just a little bit of Noir Black, just to really deepen those shadows in the rocks. I'm not going to push really hard because I don't want it like solid, harsh black. Now I got to line up the green on the top. It's looking pretty good. Let me get my green opal. Really darken the shadows in those trees. Looking good. Okay, now we're going to go to stencil 4, and we're going to start filling in some of the holes that are left. These I'm going to use a little bit brighter green because they're more to the foreground. I'm just going to worry about lining up the top, and then I'll line up the bottom separate. I mean, in theory, if you did it correctly, they should line up, but sometimes they're just slightly off, and that's okay. So don't be afraid to kind of shift and move. each section so that it lines up properly. Okay, so there's that one. And then my last stencil, I've got the darkness, the shadows and the foliage up here at the top. So there's all my greens. I don't like how that's so striped. I mean, that's how the stencil made it, but I'm just going to go in my little blending brush and add a little bit of darkness here and there just to break that up. Now I'm going to put in my sky and my water. And this is cascading down, so you want it to look almost white. I mean, and so I've got this iceberg that I'm going to use. So it's blue, but it's very, very light. Because if you look at water coming over a waterfall, it's kind of white with a mixture. It doesn't have a lot of, it's not a dark, dark blue. That is really pretty. I'm just going to come in with my blue and just kind of take away some of the starkness of that white. That's very cool. Love that. Okay, so I've got my pretty stenciled artwork, and I've got a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card blank, and I'm going to put that on there. And then I cut 2 frames. These are just white cardstock, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I used a nesting die that is 3 by 4 1/2. So I basically have almost a 1/2 inch, and I'm going to layer these up to create like a view into the scene. And then I cut some trees with a tree die that I have, and I'm going to put those onto this layer like so. And then that's going to go on foam tape over the top. Let me show you. Over the top of that layer, and then I'll put foam tape on with the finishing layer on the top. And that's going to be my scene. So I'm going to put my trees on here first. I actually love the artwork enough that I almost just put a nice black mat on it and put it on the card. But I kind of like the looks of it framed with these trees. So we're going to give that a try. And it's just going to be, they're going to be mostly off here. So most of the tree is going to be actually behind the frame. So you're not really going to see it. And that just kind of gives it a nice finished, clean look. It's got a nice view into that scene. And I just liked the little bit extra of the trees. And you could put some other, like I'm going to put my sentiment on this outside frame. I just haven't decided what sentiment I want to put on there yet. So, but yeah, I think I do like the framing there. It's just such a pretty stencil though. I mean, it's beautiful artwork. So you could leave it honestly just as it is and it'd be beautiful. So thanks for watching.